The Terrible Two by Mac Barnett and Jory John. Illustrated by Kevin Cornell. Read by Miss Clabaugh. Chapter 19. Day one of the prank war, said a cool voice inside Miles' head as he hid behind a plant outside the teacher's lounge. Or day two of the prank war, depending on whether you count that business last night with Josh Barkin, which I don't. Miles checked his watch. 9 minutes. He had 9 minutes to execute his opening salvo. Activity time between second and third periods was the chance for students to grab a snack or step outside. It was 15 minutes bell to bell. 6 of those minutes had already been burned, waiting in the corridor outside the teacher's lounge for it to clear. Now Miles was the only one left, peering out from behind a large philodendron. Since he'd taken his post at the beginning of activity time, he'd counted 8 teachers entering the lounge. That meant he needed 8 teachers to leave, right now. Miles unzipped his backpack and removed his pranking folder. The folder was nondescript and had the word "forms" written across it, which was the most boring word Miles could think of. Miles opened the folder and pulled out the thing that would empty the teacher's lounge. Celebrating Thank a Teacher Day. That means we're celebrating YOU. In honor of this special day, PTA moms have baked fancy cupcakes for all teachers. Sweet treats for our sweet teachers. Cupcakes will be available in the cafeteria during activity time, and they're sure to go fast. Thank you, teachers. Miles looked down the hallway in both directions. All clear. He did a little roll out from behind the plant, scrambled across the carpet, and slipped the bright green teacher cupcake flyer under the door. He knocked twice, jumped back behind the philodendron, and waited. The second hand of Miles's watch ticked 18 times before he heard the door open. Out came Mrs. Thorin, followed by Miss Lewis, Mr. Jabot, Miss Malshy, Mrs. Treber, Mr. Stevenson, and Mr. Maxwell, all on their way to a table in the cafeteria loaded with cupcakes. Made with extra egg yolks so they'd be extra moist, a recipe adjustment Miles had made after the whole dry cake debacle at Cody Bertyler's party. "I like cupcakes," said Mr. Maxwell to Mrs. Malshy. "I hope there's chocolate," said Mrs. Triber to Mr. Stevenson. "I don't get why they didn't just bring the cupcakes to the lounge," Miss Lewis said to nobody. That was only 7 teachers. Miles needed 8. The door swung shut. He waited another full minute, and then another 30 seconds. 6.5 minutes to go. Who was left? Miles tried to recall the procession in the lounge. It had all happened so fast. There were kids everywhere. Barkin was shouting somewhere in the distance, clanging lockers, swinging backpacks, a flash of silver track pants. Ah, yes! It was Coach O. Miles was confused. Why hadn't Coach O left? Coach O had the look of a man who loved cupcakes. In fact, Miles had seen him eating prepackaged cupcakes every day for the first 3 weeks of school. But only for the first 3 weeks. Miles slumped against the wall as he remembered a conversation between Coach O and Coach B during PE last week. Coach O was going low carb. There were definitely carbs in cupcakes. If Miles didn't think fast, the whole prank was shot. How could he get Coach O to leave that lounge? It was almost automatic. Miles pulled out his pranking folder, removed a blank sheet of bright green copy paper, and began to write. He gave the flyer a once-over and then applied the master stroke, a smear of ink on the bottom right-hand corner that looked just like copy machine toner. It said, "Also, there's bacon! Happy Thank a Teacher Day!" Perfect. Roll, scramble, slide, knock. Miles was back behind the plant in less than 6 seconds. Coach O was out the door in less than 3 more. The silver track pants swished down the hall and disappeared around the corner. 3 minutes left. This was it. For the last time, Miles left his cover and hurried across the hall. He grabbed the handle, paused a second, and pushed through into the teacher's lounge. The teacher's lounge, off limits to all students. The sanctum sanctorum. It smelled like coffee. Everything was beige except a dark brown couch with a big white rip down the center cushion. There were mugs everywhere and months old magazines and nearly finished crossword puzzles. At the center of the coffee table was a platter half full of donuts, and there, on the back wall, was a pigeonhole message box with 3 dozen little cubbies, most labeled with the last name, the teacher's mailboxes. Every step Miles took across the room was imbued with the thrill of the forbidden. He felt like a spy in his enemy's castle. Miles wasn't even breathing as he stood in front of the mailboxes, scanning strips of tape scrawled with handwritten names. Alvarez, Anderson, Barkin. Miles had practiced his next move the night before. Without looking, he reached into his pranking folder, took out a long white envelope, and stood on his tiptoes. He took one last look at his forgery. It said, To Principal Barkin, from Niles. Miles chuckled, kissed the envelope, and plunked it into Barkin's box. He grabbed a sprinkled donut on the way out the door. By the time the bell rang, he was in the main hall, and the donut was in his belly. Chapter 20. All right, gentlemen, all right. Come on, line up. Coach O was shouting between blows on his whistle. Quit standing around in little clumps. You need to line up and stop clumping. Nobody lined up. Josh Barkin jumped up and touched the net of the basketball hoop while a few other boys watched. Stewart was wearing his shirt inside out. 2 boys and a girl were reading on the bleachers. Somewhere outside the gymnasium, a cow mooed. Come on, line up, line up. Coach O was getting desperate. Don't you guys know it's Thank a Teacher Day? Although, really, some things, there wasn't even any bacon. And I'd been told there'd be bacon. The cupcakes weren't that good, Tom, said Coach B. They were dry. Over by the trophy case, Miles rolled his eyes. Well, it certainly looked like you were enjoying them enough, Mike, said Coach O. What'd you have, 3? Nobody's keeping you from eating cupcakes but yourself, Tom, said Coach B. I'm low carb, said Coach O. Then he started blowing his whistle again. Line up! The many clumps gradually coalesced into one big clump. You call that a line? I call that a clump, said Coach O. Or a blob, said Coach B. After much shifting and shuffling and some shoving by Josh Barkin, the clump thinned out into a line. Now there's a line, said Coach O. Good line, said Coach B. Coach O blew his whistle for no immediately identifiable reason. We're starting a new unit today, indoor hockey. The most important rule of indoor hockey is what? It's this: no swinging above the knees. Keep those sticks low, said Coach B. Coach B's whistle was in his mouth, and it blew faintly as he talked. Swing those sticks high, and you could accidentally hit someone in the face. Josh looked at Miles and smiled. Now, said Coach O, we've got sticks over there, pucks over there, and cones over there. Grab a stick, partner up, get a puck, and practice passing to each other. Then I'll tell you what to do with the cones. Go! Coach O blew his whistle, and the line immediately dissolved back into clumps. These kids just don't listen, Coach O said to Coach B. It's making me nuts. Look at my hands shake. Tom, maybe you should eat crackers or something. I can't eat crackers, Mike. Crackers aren't on the diet. Stop shouting, Tom. The coaches got into a deep argument punctuated by the occasional blasting of whistles at each other. Miles watched as Niles dutifully plucked a rubber puck out of a mesh bag. Look at him, Miles thought. He almost felt bad for him. Poor Niles. Niles didn't even know what was coming. And what was coming was the thrilling conclusion to a devastating prank. All day, Miles had been waiting for Barkin to show up, purple-faced, and pull Niles out of class. It hadn't happened in science, or in history, or during silent reading. It hadn't happened in art class, and so it would have to happen now in PE, the last period of the day. And oh, how perfect! PE, which meant that Niles would be called into Barkin's office wearing his gym clothes. How embarrassing! And then he'd get suspended, or maybe even expelled. No matter what, Niles Sparks would be a goat. because here is what Miles had placed in Principal Barkin's mailbox earlier that morning. Dear Principal Barkin, I, Niles, regret to inform you that on the first day of school I parked your car at the top of the stairs. This is my confession. I am sorry, I don't know why I did it, but I understand you will probably have to punish me harshly. That's fine. I deserve it and I respect you. Sincerely, Scribbles. Miles didn't know what Niles' signature looked like, and so his masterstroke was that illegible scrawl at the bottom of the paper. And now here was Niles in his size small gym clothes, at least 2 sizes too big, loping over with a plastic hockey stick under his arms. Want to partner up? Niles asked. Miles shrugged. I don't have a stick. That wasn't what I meant. Have you given any more thought to the pranking partnership? Niles checked to make sure nobody was within earshot. The terrible two? Oh, that, said Miles. What's the matter? Regretting starting this prank war with me? You started the prank war. Whatever. You know what, Niles? It sounds to me like you're scared. It sounds like you're thinking it would be better to have me close instead of out in the wild, dreaming up stunning and masterful pranks. Miles checked the door to the gym. Now would be a perfect time for Barkin to show up. But Barkin didn't show up. Instead, Niles reached into the pocket of his gym shorts and pulled out an envelope. Not an envelope, the envelope. For the first time in today's PE class, Miles felt out of breath. Where'd you get that? Niles gave a matter-of-fact shrug. I sort and deliver Principal Barkin's mail. It's one of the duties of the school helper. As you can probably imagine, I was surprised to find a letter from myself in Barkin's mailbox. So I steamed it over the electric tea kettle and found your confession. Amazing, said Miles in spite of himself. That's what I'm trying to tell you, Miles. If you never yak and keep a low profile, you're above suspicion. And if you're above suspicion, you can get access to the inner workings of the whole school. I've worked my way into a place where I can execute spectacular pranks. He paused and then added, and foil underwhelming almost pranks. What do you mean almost pranks? This wasn't a prank. Of course it was a prank. No, this was just ratting me out for a prank I committed. That's not a prank, it's just a jerk move, and a violation of the prankster's oath. I've never heard of any prankster's oath. Of course you haven't, said Niles. But if you join the Terrible Two, nope, no way. I'm not going to join your dumb club just to learn some phony oath you probably made up. I'm a born prankster. Prankster blood pumps through my prankster heart. So the war is still on? Said Niles. The war is still on. Okay. Niles held the envelope out in front of him. Take a closer look. The envelope now said, to Principal Barkin, from Miles. What? Miles grasped at the envelope, but Niles pulled it back. I took care of the inside, too. Look. Dear Principal Barkin, I, Miles, regret to inform you that on this first day of school, I parked your car at the top of the stairs. This is my confession. I am sorry. I don't know why I did it, but I understand you will probably have to punish me harshly. That's fine. I deserve it and respect you. This could have come in handy in the prank war, said Niles. A signed confession, written in your own handwriting? That's not my handwriting, Miles said. In fact, Miles had been very careful to disguise his handwriting. He closed his eyes while writing the note. Looks a lot more like yours than mine. How do you know? Miles asked. The third week check-in I had you fill out, said Niles. He produced another piece of paper. It said, please write a brief essay in cursive describing your experiences in the first 3 weeks of school using comparisons from literature, history, and/or film and television. Miles had written, go suck an egg, Niles. Sincerely, Miles. Looking at the evidence in front of him, Miles had to admit that the handwriting in the confession did look a lot like a messier version of his own. Plus, I don't write in a blue Bic Velocity 1.6 millimeter ballpoint pen, Niles said, but you do. In fact, you may remember that I borrowed yours in science. I used it to change the N's to M's in your own note. Miles had to admit that this kid had a knack for planning. Niles put the confession back in the envelope, licked the flap, and sealed it shut. I think I'll hold on to this, he said, just in case I need to put it back in Parkin's mailbox. Miles gave Niles his best sneer. Wouldn't that be ratting? Isn't that a violation of the prankster's oath? Niles smiled. It would only be ratting if you'd figured out how to put Barkin's car at the top of a flight of steps, he said. But you didn't dream up that stunning and masterful prank. He leaned in close. I did. Niles turned and walked away. Coach O and Coach B were still blowing their whistles when the bell rang.